Good morning. It's good to have you join us on Nigeria Now, showing on your digital first Pan-African News Network, TUS Television. My name is Merciful Ajinabo. We have a couple of stories from the front pages of the newspapers this morning. We begin from the Blueprint newspaper. The banner headline there is about a year to 2023 polls. INEC waits. Tension mounts over unsigned electoral bill. We have a couple of riders underneath the story. The first says, further delay could undermine public confidence in reform. That's coming from CSOs. Tell National Assembly to prioritize bill at plenary today. Want it enacted to avert legal uncertainties. Raji San says, no fear, vetoing Mr. President, not the best. We'll review in line with constituent opinion. That's coming from the Senate. And then INEC says, we're still hopeful, but may settle for extant laws if not signed. And then we see delete controversial clause, PDP governors tell National Assembly. That story can be found on page 6. So grab yourself a copy of the Blueprint newspaper. From the very top there, we see First Bank rewards customers in Transact Win promo. And then NNPC batters 1.64 trillion naira oil for refined products in 8 months. That can be found on page 24. Budget uncovers 460 duplicated projects worth 378.9 billion naira in 2022 budget. That can be found on page 24. And then we see 2023 ill health. Tinubu not for Olympics. Shetima slams critics. We have a couple of riders. Asiwaju's credentials appealing for nation's top job. Direct primaries best to elect candidate. That's coming from ex-SGF Babachir. Progressive group inaugurates Northeast Exco. That can be found on the front page of Blueprint newspaper. Then we see PGF boss resigns over APC National Convention crisis. That can be found on page 7 of the Blueprint. And underneath the picture of the day there we see COVID-19. FCTA begins no vaccination, no entry enforcement. Staff to present card, negative test to enter premises. You see on page 13 that story can be found. Talking about jailbreaks, shoot to kill, not to injure. Arigbeshola tells NTOs operatives, and that can be found on page 13. Domestic stock opens week negative, sheds 30 billion naira. Of course, all those details can be found in the Blueprint newspaper. An ex-soldier, one other to die by hanging for robbery in Ekiti State. That can be found on page 14 of the Blueprint newspaper. Talking about self-scrutiny, editors take down whole meeting to Kano. We move over to the Nigerian News Direct paper. From the very top there, Minister of Transportation Amechi confirms participation in Nigerian News Direct 11th Award anniversary. And NITDA says we're committed to providing digital literacy skills for persons living with disabilities. And then KPMG lists EcoBank Nigeria among top 5 customer experience leaders in Nigeria. That can be found on page 13. Talking about the banner headline there, National Assembly's plenary resumption, uncertainty over Electoral Act Amendment Bill. PDP Governors National Assembly says override Buhari or delete contentious provision. And Gaya says National Assembly will do whatever is in Nigerians' best interest. Senate spokesperson says we will not allow bill to be frustrated. That can be found on page 2 of the Nigerian News Direct paper. On the business day, banner headline there talks about inflation surge unlikely to raise interest rate. Of course, that can be found on page 30. Non-profit NSSF's initiative delivers 1.6 million COVID-19 vaccinations in 3 months. Non-profit NSSF's initiative delivers 1.6 million COVID-19 vaccination in 3 months. And then beside the picture of the day, we see Nigeria's infrastructure funding to slow as China cuts lending. That can be found on the Business Day newspaper. We move over to the Leadership newspaper. From the very top, we see obligors rush against deadline as AMCON finalizes list of debtors. That can be found on page 7. On the banner headline there, we see 2023 Southeast leaders woo North vote 10 billion naira for Igbo candidate. That can be found on page 4. PDP governors silent on zoning consensus candidate. APC governors pass vote of confidence on Buni committee as PGF DG resigns. And then we see it's time to reward Tinubu. Shetima Babachir tells PMB stakeholders. We see another obvious headline there. Progressive women move to break political gender barriers. That can be found on page 7. Two Riders, the first hold national conference on women participation, inclusiveness, rights today. And the second, to present one voice ahead of poll. Then we see editors hold town hall on self-scrutiny in Kanu. That can be found on page 11. Police rescue 16 kidnapped victims in Kaduna. That can be found on page 11. Kanu to face fresh terrorism charges. Of course, you can get that story on page 6 of the Leadership newspaper. And then we move over to the Daily Times newspaper. Of course, the Daily Times newspaper is the last newspaper for this morning. And we begin from the banner headline of the Daily Times newspaper. Banditry won't end soon in Zamfara, coming from Matawale. Three Riders, the first, reveals plan to name collaborators, insists 58, not 200 people killed in recent attacks. And then the third, as bandits right 9 Zamfara communities say, pay us 24 million naira or face attacks. From the very top, they're talking about state police. PDP governors accuse Buhari of unwillingness to end insecurity. We have Two Riders. The first says, call President Leo on economy, ask National Assembly to override President's veto on electoral bill, that can be found on page 2 of the Daily Times. Underneath that, we see, talking about news, FCTA denies unvaccinated residents entry into public facilities. And talking about politics, National Assembly will prioritize Electoral Act, constitutional amendments coming from Senate leader. Tax clearance certificate now precondition for doing business in Delta, says Onyeme. And then we see again, federal government files amended charges against Nnamdi Kanu. That can be found on page 3 of the Daily Times newspaper. Don't forget to also grab yourself a copy of any of the newspapers this morning that we've read out to you to stay updated on the happenings in Nigeria. And of course, our website is right there on your screen, www.tostvnetwork.com, to make sure that you know what's happening, of course, in the country and across Africa. Our social media platforms are right there also at TOS TV Network on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. Stay engaged with the platform and make sure that you know what's happening in Nigeria and across Africa. And our YouTube is right there for you to follow and subscribe so you do not miss out on amazing content. Again, thank you for joining us on Nigeria Now this morning. My name is Merciful Ajinomo. See you tomorrow.